Okay, so if your boy sounds a little bit weird, if my voice breaks, or if I seem a little nasally, I'm getting over a cold. Well, technically, I'm getting over the flu. And during this time, I decided, you know what? Between the hours of me taking medication and being asleep, and then me being awake for like 3 to 4 hours, I'd catch up on What If. If you're new to the channel, this is a series that I always look forward to because I have consistently been a big fan of both season 1 and season 2. But I feel as though season 3 completely highlights the major problems that both season 1 and season 2 suffered from. And it's the idea that if we are going to be going about this multiverse, we can't go about the comic book multiverse. We can only go about the multiverse that was created by the MCU. Now, for the first season, this was fine because everybody was basically getting used to the MCU characters. For the second season, it was still kind of fine, but it was kind of reaching the limits of where exactly it could go. We got one new character from that series, and we knew that character was going to come back, which she did in season 3. But for the most part, it was still pushing the boundaries of only giving us scenarios involving MCU characters, because What If doesn't serve as a vehicle into all of Marvel and the universe, the Marvel's universe, but it served as a vehicle to push the MCU characters in these wacky scenarios. The problem with the wacky scenarios is that it's poorly written. Season 1, I think, had the most consistent writing because it was an overarching narrative that connected all of the episodes together. We get introductions to all of these different characters. At the end of each of their episodes, it's teasing that there is this big bad enemy in the form of Ultron. Then we get Ultron's episode. Ultron's episode falls into him beefing with Uatu the Watcher, and then it just brings everybody together for those final episodes, the final fight. It felt amazing. Season 2 did not have the overarching narrative. It kind of had singles episodes and then just snatched some random pieces together and threw them together and called it a day. Season 3 just completely takes the piss off the rails instantaneously. I would say that my favorite episode wasn't even the finale. The finale was just throwing a bunch of shit at the wall. My favorite episode, funnily enough, was the episode between Red Guardian and the Winter Soldier. I thought that that was the best episode of this season. I thoroughly enjoyed their escapades. Having Red Guardian be this vehicle that allowed Bucky for even just a few moments to remember the fact that he was Bucky and he was a Winter Soldier, and both of them playing so well off of each other. Alexei being this idiot, and then Bucky being like the best friend who has to kind of like direct the idiot, but he also has no sense of direction. Mwah, magnifique, fantastic. Everything else, I absolutely fucking hated. The Hulk episode, I despised that episode from the beginning because the moment the episode started, I was like, okay, you guys are trying to do World War Hulk without doing World War Hulk, and nothing that's happening in this is making any sense in any way, shape, or form. And I say that because they gave Thor a mech, and then we're supposed to believe that when Mechanical Thor was destroyed, actual Thor died with Mechanical Thor, even though in the MCU we've seen Thor fight kaiju level monsters before and absolutely kill them and thrash them. Outside of that, I was like, what's going on here? Then we gave Monica Rambeau a mech, and I was like, why? Because her powers are kind of on the level of Captain Marvel. She wouldn't need a mech. She'd be the powerhouse that just be flying around the kaiju, just setting him on fire consistently. What is this for? The Howard the Duck Darcy episode, what even was that? Like, I have no idea. Like, I can understand it's like, it harkens back to what I said before, which is we have to take MCU characters and then we have to throw them into these wacky type of scenarios and situations. This was the wackiest and the zaniest. Like, that completely took me out. My brain checked out of the entire show during this episode that when I was watching the last two episodes, I really didn't feel anything. I was like, this is just more of us taking a bunch of characters that really, really, really shouldn't be interacting with each other and forcing them to interact with each other. It's kind of like when you were a kid and you'd pick up your Wolverine toy and then you'd pick up your G.I. Joe and then you would create a scenario where Wolverine was a part of like the Howling Commandos, and the Howling Commandos ended up meeting the Joes, and then they helped the Joes take down Cobra Commander. Shit like that. It kind of feels like that. And the reason why it feels like that, like I said before, is because I feel like Marvel implemented some type of rules and limitations onto What If, which is basically you can only use MCU characters. You cannot use any of the stories that they've been in comic books in any way, shape, or form. This show exists only to push crazy scenarios for MCU characters. And then a lot of people will talk about like the final scene where we see all of these different things going on in the multiverse. We see Samurai Ghost Rider, we see Samurai Ghost Rider, we see a version of Mantis, we see Wolverine, a part of Weapon X, like a bunch of just random scenarios, and it's like, well, why would Weapon X, if they got their hands on Thanos, why would they give him? Sure, they might give him the adamantium skeleton, but then why would they also give him the claws? Like the claws are because Wolverine had physical claws. Thanos doesn't have any claws, so why the fuck would he have claws? And then it's like, okay, Samurai Ghost Rider, that's kind of interesting. But then they had a version of Star Lord. It wasn't Shang-Chi, it was like another version of Star Lord, and I was like, well, why? Like, why is that guy Star Lord? What would have had this? What would have created the scenario that that person would have ended up being Star Lord running around in the universe? Like, it feels as though at that point in time they were just somebody sat down and like, we need a cool outro because the rest of the season is garbage. So let's just throw a bunch of cool shit together and then not really explain it in any way, shape, or form, and slap it as a montage at the end of the series to like get people hype or get people talking. It doesn't really get people talking. It pisses people off because you're sitting down and you're looking at these characters and you're like, yeah, but what would have led to these characters ending up in the situation that they ended up in? Like once the shock value of ooh Samurai Ghost Rider or ooh Weapon X Thanos goes away, it's like, well, yeah, but how did these individuals end up in that situation? And coming full circle, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Captain Carter. Okay, season one. I feel as though season one we messed with Captain Carter heavy because, like I said, overarching narrative and the writing during season one was fantastic. Season two, when Captain Carter came back, it was kind of like, okay, why? It's a multiverse. We can tell stories of other characters and then have those other characters go on like an adventure. And maybe at the end of the series, the Watcher needs his multiversal Avengers and he brings all of them back to help with like this major threat. But weaving Captain Carter through this narrative again, it was just kind of like, okay, that's kind of lazy. I don't really understand what the push is there, especially since on the live action side, you shut down the Captain Carter movie. You also shut down the Peggy Carter show. But then for season three, once again, it feels as though it's ham fisted. And I feel as though I understand where a lot of people's anger and rage is coming from, because it's not anger and rage at the fact that you're constantly seeing this character over and over and over again. It's anger and rage from the fact that the writing is bad. If this at the end of this year, we had a TV show that was led by two gay couples, an interracial couple, and a fucking robot. So the idea, not a robot, a werewolf, but the idea that people don't want to see women lead is bullshit. People want good writing. People who watch these types of things want good writing. You sat down and you watched Arcane and all of the relationship stuff didn't bother you because the writing was friggin' peak. It was excellent. For Captain Carter, you wouldn't mind if Captain Carter constantly showed up if the writing was actually good. The problem is the writing is so glaringly bad that it constant it's kind of like it attaches itself to this character in particular, and because they just metastasize together and become like this glaring sore that you can't that you're tired of just looking at. Because through this season, I'll admit once again, I got sick and tired of seeing Captain Carter. I was like, why is she back again? Like, why? You have your own story to wrap up on your own Earth. Why aren't we wrapping up your story back there? Why didn't they wrap up your story back on your Earth during last season? What are you back again for? What is Howard the Duck's daughter doing here? The only member of this new trio that I was hyped to see was Storm, because I was like, oh my God, a character that I 100% didn't expect to see in any way, shape, or form. But then it's like, why are you here? And why didn't we see any of the other X-Men in any way, shape, or form? That would have been a good story. A good story and a good start to this team being created would be episode 1, Storm getting Mjolnir, where she gets sent to Asgard, or Thor comes to Earth and realizes that she's a god, and he's like, no, you shouldn't be amongst humans, you should be amongst, your own kind, and he takes her back to Asgard, and she's in Asgard, something happens, he dies, and she gets Mjolnir, and she kills whoever the major threat is. That would have been interesting. I'd be down to see an episode of that. Peggy Carter going back to her Earth, dealing with the remnants of like Hydra Stomper Steve or Hydra Stomper, or her having her own, well, technically she had her Winter Soldier episode last season, so her dealing with like maybe like a civil war situation back on her Earth again. Cool. Introducing different situations with new variants. Weren't we supposed to get an episode that no, we did get that episode. We got an episode last season. The episode that dealt with Tony Stark, who ended up teamed up with Gamora in space. But more stuff about them. Maybe a Thanos episode about, him and Lady Death. Now that Lady Death is in the picture with Agatha. Is it Covenant of Chaos? Is it Agatha all along? Now that she's been introduced with Agatha all along. So many different avenues we could choose to go in. Yet for whatever reason, we're locked in to mediocre. And mediocre ends up getting attached to the characters that people are consistently seeing every single fucking season. I'm kind of happy that What If is over. If I want to enjoy What If, I can go back and I can watch season 1. I can watch maybe half of season 2, but season 3 is abysmal. It is absolutely fucking horrible. I didn't enjoy it at all. And like I said before, around episode 5 with the whole Watcher thing and then Ultron coming back, my brain just checked out. I just didn't care anymore. Nope, didn't care anymore. Brain shut off. I moved on to like something else. I ended up finishing up Ella Purnell's Sweet Pea. So that's another thing on the backlog that I've knocked out. And I'm working my way through my backlog so that I'll have everything done and ready either by Wednesday or sometime at the end of the week for the beginning of the new year. Just talking about everything. But no. Season 3 of What If is horrible in every way, shape, and form. And the fact that the people who are currently writing season 3 of What If are the ones who are going to come back and write the next few seasons of X-Men 97 makes me absolutely fucking shudder in complete and total fear that they are going to drop the ball in that series as well.